All right, last question. Let's assume we've been training one side differently due to a shoulder injury.
Hypothetically speaking.
Asking for a friend. Other than external load, how else might programming need to differ between limbs? Do we expect the hypertrophy signal to the injured side to be similar, or for the injured side to at least not lose size? Are you confident that the crosstalk phenomena will continue to avoid strength and hypertrophy discrepancies over a longer recovery time? It's an interesting question. So if you don't know anything about me, if you're like new to barbell medicine, somehow ended up in the seminar by accident, like I appreciate you like playing along the whole time. That's been great. About 5 weeks ago now, I fell off my motorcycle and dislocated my right shoulder. I reduced it in the field. That was less fun than it sounds like. And since then, I've been getting better. For the first few days afterwards, I couldn't even put on a shirt. So like literally couldn't not move my arm enough to like put a t-shirt on. So I was like button down king. And then this last week I've benched, the most I benched was 170 kilos, so 375. So yeah, it took me, it was a week till I benched 30 kilos, and then yeah, subsequently in the following 4 weeks I've added 300 pounds to my bench press.
Weird trick, man.
One weird trick, yeah. Bench a lot of weight, dislocate your shoulder, and then recover from that. So how I trained in the beginning, I went to a commercial gym. So they had more dumbbells and machines, and what I would do on my good side, my left side, I would do a set of either if the rep scheme was 12s or 15s or 10s or whatever it was, I would do that normally to the correct RPE, which was RPE 8 at the time, and then I would do the same rep scheme on the right side, but that would be my limited basically by pain. So the biggest discrepancy I ever got to, I was doing one arm dumbbell bench presses, and I was using 150 on my left arm, and I was using 25s on my right arm. And that was kind of funky because you pick 150 and kind of hold it around, and it was weird because I would like kick it back and I'd be like, ouch, my right shoulder hurts just by holding this thing, but I could press it, and then I would pick up the 25-pound weight and like in shame walk it over to the bench and bench it. And so this crosstalk phenomenon is that if you have one limb, most of this data comes from limbs that have been isolated. Either they cast people who have not fractured or injured a limb, but they just cast healthy individuals. They otherwise limit the movement they have with one limb, and they exercise the other limb. There's crosstalk in both strength and some like size preservation. Mostly size preservation, that's where most of the data resides. Basically, you get a systemic or body-wide sort of signal for hypertrophy, and it also seems to affect, obviously, the other limb. So you lose less size due to immobilization than you'd otherwise suspect. And strength-wise, you tend to see a little bit less, but again, the data isn't as strong. As far as what I experienced, I haven't experienced any strength loss as far as I can tell, because right now my strength levels are limited mainly by discomfort. That said, I'm not sure if it's due to what I've done in the interim, compared to what is the normal rate of strength decay for me. Because my best bench press is 440, right? And so all I've benched in the interim is 374. So I'm still well below that 440. And I don't notice that the bar doesn't go up crooked on one side, for example, or doesn't feel harder on my right side, but it's still submaximal. So I can't speak to, do I think that it's working really, really well. It just gave me a way to train, and more importantly was range that injured side. So I was getting used to ranges of motion that I used in not only training, but also day-to-day life. So I would do seated dumbbell press. I remember the first day I just picked up the 12-pound dumbbell, a 12-pound dumbbell, and I couldn't press it all the way overhead. And I was like,
I think this is it.
Is there an 8-pound dumbbell? Like, what, do we have anything this light? And so I actually picked a 5-pound plate, like a flat plate, and I was pressing just the plate. And I'm like, this is what I've been resolved to. But the idea, the benefit there wasn't the load, it was ranging that joint. So other things I've had to do, I was unable to tolerate a bar on my back, just actually pressing on my shoulder. Safety squat bar worked a little bit, except for the press, when it got heavy enough, I couldn't really tolerate that. So what I had to do is make the exercise challenging enough, but it kept the load light enough simultaneously. So I had to, what I did with the safety squat bar is I started doing 12s with a 3-second tempo eccentric. And effectively that would limit the load. I couldn't squat more than 400 pounds like that. which was good because it didn't hurt my shoulder. Or I would use the belt squat, for example, which didn't load my shoulder at all. And then now, I mean, on Monday, I high bar squatted 538 for a triple at, RP 7, which is approaching maybe my best triple high bar. And at some point, I'll low bar again, and I'll be strong at some point. We hope. Other things I've had to do, I couldn't deadlift 70 kilos the first time I tried to deadlift because the traction was a problem. So I had no good way to actually deadlift anything at all with my right side. So I was doing single leg deadlifts, but I also did a lot of leg press and hack squats and other stuff, and that has decent transference. And I pulled, 650 for a triple? Mm-hmm. So less than a month
Pretty
out.
good.
Not bad. I mean, it's getting close. Again, probably 15 pounds off my best triple. So I think things are improving. And the way I would sum this up for folks is that, if you get injured and it limits your ability to train how you want to train, find ways to train the unaffected side as normally as possible. Sometimes you got to get creative, and then still range the other side. Use light weights if you have to, change the exercise variations if you have to. I'll only be able to find out if what I've lost until I have no more discomfort. But on the other hand, if I can only get it back up to a 430 pound bench, do I think that that's more due to the injury or just me not being as strong? I don't know.
Yeah. I think there's some, even in the context of bilateral, quote unquote, normal training, there's pretty good evidence for the idea that you can drop, from a very well-trained state, you can drop training volume substantially down to I think a ninth or something like that was what was that particular study of the training volume that they were doing beforehand, and that can maintain strength for actually a pretty good amount of time. And so, I know that a component of this question was how long do you think that you can keep going like this? For example, if you're just training one side, I think a while, honestly.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're staying active in a bunch of other ways.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect any atrophy to occur unless I was under bed rest or otherwise ill or on a low protein diet or somehow immobilized and was unable to do any activity. I wouldn't expect any atrophy.
Or at least any grossly detectable atrophy if somebody's looking at your arms from outside.
Well, yeah, but even if it did happen, so what tends to happen even when you put people on bed rest, sometimes the muscle cross-sectional area decreases, but the actual components that are responsible for maintaining muscle size persist. And so as soon as this person is back active again, their muscle swells up.
Yeah.
So what muscle memory is mostly due to is effectively these muscle cells called myonuclei. They maintain a particular area of your muscle mass. And when you have this prolonged period of disuse, they go, guess we'll just pack up shop and go home. But they stay there in your muscle. And so when they finally start being active again, they're like, cool, gang's back in town, let's grow. And your muscle swells back up. So I would have expected, if any loss from being, if I was immobilized for real, that it would return within weeks.
Yeah.
But because I'm not on bed rest, I'm not otherwise ill, I'm going to have big arms.
And no concerns about the asymmetries here.
Oh, I mean, I've been asymmetrical since '85. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's part of my charm.
All right, that's it.
That's it.